Poor Waitress inherited a rusty 1960s yacht from a stranger she'd never met. But the hidden cargo inside was worth $15 million, leaving investigators speechless. Subscribe now or this might be our last meeting. Follow, comment, and share to stay connected. Don't miss out. Let's dive in. Valentina Rossi wiped down the last table at Coral Bay Diner, her movements automatic after 3 years of practice. The late afternoon sun filtered through salt-stained windows, casting long shadows across checkered floors that had seen better decades. Her back ached, the kind of deep, persistent pain that came from standing 12-hour shifts in shoes held together by duct tape and determination. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. She'd been refilling ketchup bottles when Martin, the owner, called her to the back office. A man in an expensive gray suit stood there, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the cramped space that smelled of fryer grease and old coffee. "Miss Rossi?" He extended a crisp business card. "I'm Robert Chen, attorney at law. I have news regarding an inheritance." Valentina's hands trembled slightly as she took the card. Inheritance. The word felt foreign, almost laughable. She had no family left. Her parents had died when she was 22, leaving nothing but debts she'd spent years paying off. "There must be some mistake," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "No mistake." He opened a leather briefcase, extracting documents that looked official and intimidating. "A man named Victor Castellano passed away 6 months ago. His will specifically names you as the sole beneficiary of a vessel, a 1963 yacht called Maribel." The name meant nothing to her. Victor Castellano. She turned it over in her mind, searching for any connection. "Nothing. I've never heard of him," she said finally. He was aware of that. Mr. Chen's expression softened slightly. His instructions were clear. "The boat is yours, Miss Rossi. No conditions, no obligations. It's currently docked at Pierce Maritime Storage in Key Largo." After he left, Valentina stood in that back office for a long time, staring at the papers in her hands. A boat. A stranger's boat. It made no sense. But sense or not, 2 days later she found herself walking down Dock 7 at Pierce Maritime, her heart hammering against her ribs. The Maribel looked like something from a forgotten era, and not in a romantic way. Rust bloomed across the white hull like a disease. The deck was littered with leaves and bird droppings. Ropes hung loose and frayed. The cabin windows were so filthy she couldn't see through them. Planning to scrap it, Valentina turned to find an older man in coveralls watching her with undisguised curiosity. "I inherited it," she said, surprised by how strange the words sounded out loud. He whistled low. "Bad luck or good luck, depending on how you look at it. That thing's been sitting here since 1998. Storage fees alone must be astronomical." Her stomach dropped. Of course. Nothing in life came free. She climbed aboard carefully, testing each step. The deck groaned but held. Inside the cabin, everything was coated in a thick layer of dust and salt residue. Navigation equipment from another century. Cracked leather seats. A wheel that had once been polished wood, now gray and weathered. But beneath the decay, she could see the bones of something beautiful. The lines were elegant, the craftsmanship evident even under decades of neglect. Her fingers traced the control panel, and something shifted in her chest, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself in 3 years. Recognition. She knew boats, had known them intimately once, before Gregory Vale had stolen everything from her, before her name had become synonymous with fraud and theft in every engineering firm from Miami to Boston. Valentina knelt on the deck, pulling away a section of rotted planking. Her breath caught. Hidden beneath was a compartment, custom-built, expertly concealed. Inside, wrapped in layers of degraded plastic, were papers, yellowed, water-damaged, but still legible. Shipping manifests, invoices, and a seal pressed into red wax, partially intact. Pierce Marine. The same name as this storage facility. The same company she'd seen in the news, one of the largest maritime operations in South Florida, owned by the Pierce family for generations. Her hands shook as she carefully extracted a document. The ink had faded, but she could make out signatures. Dates, 1963, and at the bottom, in handwriting that made her blood run cold, Gregory Vale. No, it couldn't be. Gregory would have been, she did the math quickly, barely born in 1963. It had to be a coincidence. A different Gregory Vale. The universe couldn't be that cruel. But the handwriting. She'd seen that handwriting on forged documents that had destroyed her career, on contracts that had stolen her designs, on the falsified emails that had sent her to a disciplinary hearing she'd never recovered from. That night, back in her studio apartment above a laundromat, Valentina spread the papers across her small table. She should report this, should hand everything over to authorities and walk away. But she couldn't, because if this boat held secrets about Gregory, real, provable secrets, then maybe, just maybe, she could finally clear her name. She returned to the Maribel the next evening after her shift. The sun was setting, painting the water in shades of amber and rose. She'd brought tools, basic ones from the diner's maintenance closet, and determination that surprised even herself. The engine was a disaster, corroded beyond belief, parts fused together by rust and time. But she'd worked on worse during her engineering days. She lost herself in the familiar rhythm, testing connections, checking fuel lines, cleaning corrosion. Hours passed. The sun disappeared completely. Dock lights flickered on, casting harsh shadows. Then the engine coughed, sputtered, almost caught. A shower of sparks erupted from the control panel. Valentina jumped back, her heart racing as smoke began to rise. She grabbed a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall, miraculously still functional, and doused the flames. In the sudden darkness that followed, headlights swept across the dock. A white limousine, absurdly out of place among the working boats and rusted equipment, glided to a stop at the dock's entrance. Valentina's breath caught as a man emerged. Tall, expensive suit, movements that spoke of absolute confidence. Even from a distance, she could feel the weight of his presence. Alexander Pierce had arrived. That boat belonged to my family. His voice cut through the humid night air like steel through water. Alexander Pierce stood at the edge of the dock, his expression unreadable in the harsh lighting. Up close, he was even more imposing, sharp cheekbones, steel gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything about her in seconds. Valentina straightened, very aware that she was covered in grease and probably smelled like burnt wiring. And now it belongs to me. So I've been informed. He stepped onto the dock, his expensive shoes making no sound against the weathered wood. I'd like to inspect it. No. The word hung between them. She watched surprise flicker across his face, brief, quickly controlled, as if he wasn't used to hearing that particular word. Miss Rossi. His tone shifted, became almost reasonable. This vessel was part of my father's original fleet. It has historical significance to Pierce Marine. I'm prepared to make you a generous offer. I'm not selling. You don't even know what I'm offering. I don't care. Valentina crossed her arms, refusing to be intimidated by the width of his shoulders or the fact that this man probably had more money in his wallet than she'd made all year. The Maribel was left to me legally. I have the papers. Unless you have a legal claim, Mr. Pierce, we have nothing to discuss. Something shifted in his expression. His eyes dropped to her hands, still resting on the engine housing, then back to her face. You know boats. It wasn't a question. Valentina felt her stomach clench. Careful. She couldn't afford to reveal too much. Not yet. I know how to turn a key and hope for the best, she said lightly. That's not what I saw. He moved closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with sea air. You adjusted the fuel mixture. Checked the valve timing. That's not turning a key, Miss Rossi. That's expertise. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Valentina glanced at the horizon, where dark clouds were building rapidly. A summer storm rolling in from the Atlantic, the kind that turned the ocean violent in minutes. I should go, she said. Not yet. Alexander stepped fully onto the boat, moving with surprising grace for someone so large. Where did you learn about marine engines? Does it matter? It matters to me. The first drops of rain began to fall, fat, heavy drops that promised a deluge. Valentina moved to secure loose lines out of habit and realized her mistake immediately. Alexander was watching her with sharp focus, noting every practiced movement. You're not a waitress, he said quietly. I am now, but you weren't always. The rain intensified, going from sprinkle to downpour in seconds. The boat rocked gently beneath them. Valentina could run, should run, but something kept her rooted there. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the desperate hope that this man might actually believe her if she told the truth. I was an engineer, she said finally, the words tasting like rust on her tongue. Naval design. Sustainable propulsion systems. I specialized in retrofitting vintage vessels with modern, eco-friendly technology. Was? 3 years ago, someone I trusted destroyed that career. She met his gaze directly, refusing to look away. Stole my designs, falsified documents to make it look like I was the thief. I lost everything, my license, my reputation, my future. The engine suddenly coughed to life behind them, a grinding, protesting sound that shouldn't have been possible given its condition. Black smoke belched from the exhaust. And then, with a metallic screech, a panel in the engine housing gave way. A metal box clattered onto the deck between them. They both stared at it. Old, corroded but clearly custom-made. Sealed with a lock that had long since rusted away. Valentina knelt, her hands trembling as she opened it. Inside, more documents. A manifest of cargo, dated March 15, 1963. Signatures at the bottom, 3 of them. Victor Castellano, Marcus Pierce, and Gregory Vale. That's my father's signature, Alexander said, his voice strange. He pointed to Marcus Pierce's name. He died in 1998. A boating accident. His eyes lifted to hers. On this boat. The rain pounded around them, but Valentina barely noticed. She was staring at the 3rd signature. Gregory Vale. Not a different person. Not a coincidence. The same handwriting from the documents hidden in the floor. The same handwriting that had forged her termination papers. Who's Gregory Vale? Alexander asked. Valentina's throat closed. Of all the questions he could ask, why that one? You know him, she managed. He's your current business partner. Gregory Vale, VP of Maritime Acquisitions at Pierce Marine. The color drained from Alexander's face. Thunder cracked overhead, close enough to make the boat shudder. The rain was now a wall of water, trapping them together in the small cabin. Alexander pulled out his phone, water droplets sliding down the screen as he pulled up a photo. This Gregory Vale? Valentina looked at the image. A professional headshot of the man who'd destroyed her life. Older now, gray at the temples, but the same calculating eyes. Yes, she whispered. He's been with my company for 15 years. Alexander's voice was carefully controlled, but she could hear the anger beneath. Impeccable record. Trusted advisor. He helped me rebuild after my father's death. The pieces were falling into place too quickly. A boat that had killed Alexander's father. Documents signed by all 3 men. Gregory's involvement spanning decades. And now somehow she was caught in the middle of something that had started before she was born. I think, Valentina said slowly, that your father's death wasn't an accident. Lightning illuminated the cabin, throwing Alexander's face into sharp relief. For just a moment she saw past the billionaire armor to the man underneath, someone who'd lost his father and never gotten real answers. Prove it, he said. I don't have proof. Just these documents, and 3 years of knowing exactly what Gregory Vale is capable of. She stood, water dripping from her hair, meeting his gaze. But if you help me tear apart this boat piece by piece, I think we'll find it. The storm raged around them. The Maribel rocked violently, decades of rust and decay groaning under the assault. Alexander looked at the manifest, then at her, then back at the water-stained papers that connected 3 lives across 60 years. My mother, he said suddenly. She mentioned Gregory visiting the dock. Years ago, right after my father died. She thought it was odd. They barely knew each other then. His jaw tightened. She said he'd been looking at this boat. Valentina's heart hammered. What happened to the investigation? Into your father's death? Closed as accidental. Engine failure, they said. Alexander's eyes met hers, and she saw the moment he made his decision. But engines don't just fail. Not unless someone makes them fail. The rain continued to pour, flooding the deck, drowning the dock in water and darkness. But inside that rusted cabin, something was being born. An alliance forged by betrayal, bound by the need for truth. Tomorrow, Alexander said. We start tomorrow. I'll bring tools, proper equipment. We'll find everything hidden in this boat. He paused. And Miss Rossi, if you're lying to me, I'm not. She interrupted. I've spent 3 years being called a liar. I'm done with lies. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded sharply. Then we have an understanding. As he left, disappearing into the storm and that absurd white limousine, Valentina sank onto the cabin's wet bench. Her hands were shaking. Her clothes were soaked through. And for the first time in 3 years, something that felt dangerously like hope flickered in her chest. The past was coming back, and this time, she wouldn't let it drown her. Alexander arrived at dawn with 2 technicians and equipment that looked like it belonged in a forensics lab. Valentina watched as they unloaded scanners and what appeared to be a portable X-ray machine. You don't do anything halfway, do you? She said. Not when it involves my father's death. He handed her coffee from an expensive cafe. The gesture surprised her. Small, almost thoughtful. They worked in silence for the first hour, removing panels and checking every hidden corner. The Maribel gave up her secrets slowly. Valentina found the second compartment in the captain's quarters. Her fingers caught on an irregularity, not damage, but design. A seam so precise it was almost invisible. She pressed, twisted, and a section swung open. Alexander. Inside the hidden space, a waterproof container, military grade. The technicians needed 20 minutes to open it without destroying the contents. Inside, ledgers. Shipping manifests for cargo never officially declared. Invoices for materials that didn't match any legitimate business. Rare earth metals. Valentina breathed. Palladium, rhodium, iridium. These were restricted in the 60s. How much? Alexander's voice was tight. She did the math quickly. $15 million. Conservative estimate. The technicians exchanged glances. Alexander stared at the documents, his father's handwriting on these pages, approving clearly illegal transactions. There's more, a technician called from the engine room. They crowded into the narrow space. He'd removed a section of the engine housing, revealing modified parts that didn't belong in a 1963 engine. Modern components, designed to fail catastrophically. Sabotage, the technician said flatly. Rigged to blow. Timer-based or speed-triggered. When was this installed? Valentina's voice shook. Late 90s. 97, 98. The year Alexander's father died. On this boat. Alexander touched the components with something like reverence. My father took the Maribel out alone that day. The explosion happened 3 miles offshore. They found pieces. Valentina's throat closed. Gregory did this, but we need proof putting him on this boat in 1998. Something undeniable. They searched for 2 more hours. The sun turned the cabin into an oven, but Valentina couldn't stop. A technician found the camera hidden in the cabin ceiling, disguised as a ventilation grate. Old technology, tape degraded but potentially recoverable. My father was paranoid about security, Alexander said. He must have suspected something. Can you recover the footage? Maybe. It'll take time. Do it, Alexander commanded. Whatever it costs. He turned to Valentina, suspicion replaced by reluctant respect. You were right. About all of it. I wish I wasn't. Valentina's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop digging, or you'll regret it. She showed Alexander, whose jaw tightened. He knows we're investigating. How? Someone's reporting to him. From now on, you don't go anywhere alone. I've been alone for 3 years. My father thought he could handle Gregory too. Alexander's voice was sharp. He's dead. I won't let that happen to you. That evening, Alexander took Valentina to his mother's estate. Eleanor Pierce was elegant, composed, with eyes that saw too much. So you're the woman who inherited the Maribel, Eleanor said. Alexander told me what you found. I'm sorry about your husband. Eleanor's hands tightened on her teacup. I always knew Marcus didn't die in an accident, but I had no proof. Tell her, Alexander said. I saw Gregory at the marina 2 days before Marcus died. He claimed business, but Marcus wasn't there. I found him on the Maribel. When he saw me, he looked guilty. Did you tell police? They dismissed it. Gregory had an alibi, witnesses in Miami. But I never forgot that look. He was installing the device, Valentina said. 2 days gave him time to test it. Alexander's phone rang. He listened, and his expression transformed. The lab recovered the footage. Gregory's on that tape. Valentina's heart hammered. This was it. Justice. Vindication. Alexander pulled up the video. Gregory's younger face filled the screen, standing in the engine room, methodically installing components designed to kill. They'd just declared war on a man who'd murdered to keep his secrets. And Gregory Vale didn't lose wars. Gregory arrived at Pierce Marine headquarters on Wednesday morning, carrying the leather portfolio Valentina recognized from her nightmares. She was in Alexander's office when the receptionist announced him. Mr. Vale is here with an investment opportunity regarding vintage vessel restoration. Valentina's blood turned to ice. Don't let him in. Alexander, please. But the door opened. Gregory walked in like he owned the place, his eyes finding Valentina immediately. Alexander, and Miss Rossi, what a pleasant surprise. His voice was warm honey over broken glass. I didn't realize you two knew each other. Mr. Vale, I wasn't expecting you. Alexander's tone was carefully neutral. I heard you'd acquired the Maribel. I have a proposal, a restoration project that could generate publicity for Pierce Marine. Valentina couldn't breathe. He was testing how much they knew. "The boat's not for sale," she managed. "I'm not looking to buy." Gregory spread documents across Alexander's desk. "An investment partnership. Everyone wins." He laid out photographs, the Maribel in her prime, gleaming white, cutting through blue water. "Your father loved that boat," Gregory said softly. "It would honor his memory." Valentina watched Alexander's face, the war behind his eyes, the video footage versus 15 years of trust. "I'll consider it," Alexander said. "No." Valentina's stomach dropped. "Miss Rossi, a word in private? About technical specifications?" "No," Valentina said flatly. She said no, Gregory. Alexander's voice went cold. "Direct questions to me." Something flickered across Gregory's face. "My apologies. I know you and I have history." "History," Valentina repeated. "Is that what you call destroying someone's career?" "Valentina." Alexander's warning was quiet, but 3 years of rage boiled over. "You stole my designs. Made me look like a criminal while you profited." Gregory's expression became pitying. "Alexander, I'd hoped to avoid this." He pulled more documents. "These are the investigation findings. Patent theft, embezzlement, falsification, all proven. Those reports are lies. The courts disagreed. Attempting to rehabilitate your image by accusing me is—" "Get out," Alexander said. "I'm sorry. Get out of my office. This meeting is over." As Gregory passed Valentina, he leaned close. "You should have stayed invisible. Now I'll destroy you all over again. And this time you won't get back up." The door closed. Valentina's legs gave out. "He's going to come after me," she said, "with everything he has. Let him try." Alexander's hand was on her shoulder. "I have the best lawyers in Florida. You don't know him like I do. He doesn't just destroy careers, he destroys lives. By the time he's done, you'll believe every lie. I saw the video, Valentina. I know what he did. And he'll have an explanation. He always does." Her voice broke. "I can't go through this again." Alexander knelt in front of her. "You're not alone this time. Whatever he does, you're not alone." She wanted to believe him so badly, but she'd trusted before, and it had cost her everything. The next morning, Valentina woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Engineering fraud. Suspect resurfaces. Valentina Rossi, under investigation for maritime theft. The article was detailed, damning, completely fabricated. It claimed she'd stolen the Maribel through forged documents, that Pierce Marine was cooperating with authorities. Gregory's signature move. Character assassination through planted stories. Her phone rang. "Alexander." "Don't believe," she started. "I'm coming to get you. Pack a bag. You're staying at my estate." "Alexander, the article. It's lies. All of it. But we need to keep you safe." His voice softened. "Please, Valentina. Trust me." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this alone, but she was so tired of being alone. "Okay," she whispered. 30 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. Professional security escorted her like she was made of glass. Gregory had declared war, and this time, Valentina wasn't sure she'd survive it. The arrest warrant came 3 days later. Valentina was in Alexander's guest room when Eleanor knocked softly. "The police are at the gate. They have a warrant for maritime theft." Her heart stopped. "Gregory, Alexander's lawyers are on their way, but the warrant is legitimate. Federal charges." Eleanor's expression was pained. "There's another way out. The service entrance leads to the beach path. Take my car. Keys are in the lower garage." "I can't run. That makes me look guilty." "You can't fight from a jail cell either." Eleanor pressed a phone into her hand. "This is untraceable. Go to the Maribel. Finish what you started." "Why are you helping me?" Eleanor's eyes were fierce. "Because Gregory Vale murdered my husband, and I won't let him win again." Valentina ran. The storm hit as she reached the marina, sheets of rain turning the world gray and violent. Behind her, sirens wailed. Inside the cabin, she collapsed, gasping. She needed more evidence. The video showed Gregory in 1998, but without context, his lawyers could claim routine maintenance. She needed the cargo itself, the 15 million that had started everything. Valentina grabbed tools and began tearing apart the engine room floor. Rain hammered the deck. Thunder shook the hull. Her crowbar hit something solid, a safe welded between the hull's ribs. It took an hour to cut through. Inside, vacuum-sealed packages. She tore one open. platinum bars stamped with 1962 dates, rhodium ingots, documents detailing Cold War smuggling routes, and a ledger in Gregory's handwriting. Recent entries dated last year. He'd been selling this cargo piece by piece. At the bottom, a USB drive in waterproof casing, labeled in Marcus Pierce's handwriting, "Insurance, open only if I die." Valentina pulled out the phone Eleanor had given her. "Alexander, I found it, the cargo, and something your father left, a USB drive. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't open it yet." But she couldn't wait. She plugged it into Alexander's laptop left on the boat. Marcus Pierce's face filled the screen. The date, April 1998, 2 weeks before his death. "If you're watching this, I'm dead, and Gregory Vale killed me." Marcus's voice was steady, methodical. "In 1963, Victor Castellano, Gregory's father, and I smuggled rare metals from Cuba. We made $15 million and swore to walk away. But the Vales never stopped. By the 80s, they were moving weapons. Documents flashed across the screen. I threatened to expose them. Gregory agreed to shut it down, but I've caught him on the Maribel 3 times. Today I found evidence he's modifying the engine. I'm documenting everything." Marcus turned off camera, listening. His expression changed to fear. Someone's here. The video cut off. The next file was audio from the day Marcus died. Gregory's younger voice filled the cabin. "You should have kept your mouth shut, Marcus. Did you really think I'd let you destroy everything? Gregory, we can talk. This boat is going to have an unfortunate accident. Engine failure. And that insurance file you hid? I'll find it after you're dead." Footsteps. A door slamming. 20 minutes later, an explosion distorted the recording. Valentina sat frozen, tears streaming. Marcus had known, had documented everything. The cabin door burst open. Alexander stood there, soaked. "Did you?" "I'm sorry," Valentina whispered. She turned the laptop toward him. Alexander watched without moving. Every video, every audio file. When the final explosion sounded, his jaw tightened. "He knew," Alexander said, voice rough. "My father knew Gregory would kill him, and he documented it anyway." His voice broke. "Because he wanted me to have the truth. The police are looking for me. The warrant will be withdrawn by tomorrow. Gregory will be arrested for murder, fraud, and smuggling." Alexander's voice was steel. "We end this tomorrow at the Maritime Gala. Gregory will be there, expecting to celebrate while you rot in jail. Instead, he's going to watch his world collapse. Tomorrow? That's too soon. We've had 25 years. Alexander's jaw was set. "Tomorrow we make Gregory Vale answer for everything." The Nautical Heritage Gala was held at the Perez Art Museum, all glass walls and ocean views. Valentina stood in Eleanor's guest room wearing midnight blue silk that made her look like someone she'd once been. "You're sure about this?" Eleanor adjusted Valentina's hair. "I've been running for 3 years. I'm done running." Alexander appeared in the doorway, devastating in a tuxedo. "You look ready." They arrived separately. Alexander through the main entrance with photographers. Valentina through the service entrance with Eleanor. The ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing. And there, at the center, was Gregory Vale, the keynote speaker, about to receive a Maritime Conservation Award. "Remember," Eleanor whispered, "we control the AV system. When you give the signal, everything plays." Gregory took the stage to applause. His speech was polished, full of references to maritime heritage. "It's an honor to accept this award. My mentor, Marcus Pierce, taught me we're stewards of the ocean." He paused, emotional. Marcus died too young, but his legacy lives on. Valentina stood, every head turned. "That's a beautiful speech, Gregory, but it's all lies." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Gregory's face went white. "Security?" "No." Alexander was on his feet. "Let her speak." "Alexander, this woman is wanted for charges you fabricated, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about murder." The ballroom erupted. Gregory gripped the podium. "This is insane. Please call the police." Valentina walked toward the stage. "Because they're going to want to see what we found on the Maribel. The boat you rigged to explode. I was in Miami when Marcus died. You were in Miami when the bomb went off. But you installed it 2 days earlier. Marcus's widow saw you." Eleanor stood. "I saw you on that boat, Gregory. I've known for 25 years. "Lights," Alexander said. The ballroom went dark. Marcus Pierce's face appeared on the screen. "If you're watching this, I'm dead. And Gregory Vale killed me. For 10 minutes, Miami's elite watched the evidence unfold. Marcus's videos, Gregory's audio confession, documents proving decades of smuggling, the sabotaged engine, financial records, security footage from 1998 showing Gregory installing explosives. When the lights returned, Gregory was surrounded by federal agents. "Gregory Vale, you're under arrest for the murder of Marcus Pierce." Gregory lunged off the stage toward Valentina, hands reaching for her throat. Alexander intercepted him, his fist connecting with Gregory's jaw. Gregory went down hard. "You destroyed my life!" Gregory screamed as agents pinned him. "I built everything." "I'm the woman who brought you down," Valentina said quietly. "That's all I needed to be." Cameras flashed. Gregory was hauled away in handcuffs, still screaming. Alexander pulled Valentina into his arms. Around them, chaos erupted, but she felt only relief. "It's over," Alexander murmured. "It's finally over." The next morning, headlines blazed. 15 million maritime fraud exposed. CEO arrested for murder. Hero engineer vindicated after 3 years. Valentina sat in Alexander's study, reading with disbelief. Her phone hadn't stopped, former colleagues apologizing, universities offering positions. "How does it feel?" Alexander asked. "Surreal. 3 years ago I was ready to disappear forever. Now you're free." Free. The word felt too big to grasp. "What happens now?" she asked. Alexander sat beside her. "That's up to you. You could go back to engineering. Start your own firm. And us?" The question escaped before she could stop it. His eyes met hers, intense. "I'd like there to be an us, if you'll have me. You barely know me. I know you're brilliant, brave enough to fight when everyone else would have given up. I've never met anyone like you, Valentina Rossi." She thought about everything she'd lost and fought to reclaim. Maybe she'd found something better. "I'd like that too," she whispered. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home. Like the sea after a storm, calm, clear, full of possibility. Outside, the Maribel sat at dock, restored and gleaming. No longer a tomb of secrets, but a testament to truth. And Valentina Rossi had inherited something far more valuable than a rusty yacht, her life back, and a future worth fighting for. 2 weeks after Gregory's arrest, Valentina stood alone on the deck of the Maribel, watching the sunrise paint the water in shades of gold and rose. The boat had been fully restored. New paint, polished brass, engines that purred instead of groaned. It was beautiful, finally worthy of its name. But she felt hollow. The news cycle had moved on. Gregory sat in federal detention awaiting trial. The engineering firms that had blacklisted her now sent apologetic emails and job offers she hadn't opened. Her name was cleared, her reputation restored. So why did she still feel broken? "I thought I'd find you here." Alexander's voice made her turn. He looked tired, dressed casually for once, jeans and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. In his hands, a folder thick with documents. "I needed to think," she said. "About?" He stepped onto the deck, moving carefully as if approaching something fragile. "Everything. Nothing." Valentina turned back to the water. 3 years, I fought to clear my name. Now it's done, and I don't know what to do with myself. The anger that kept me going is gone, and I feel empty. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "My therapist calls it post-traumatic deflation. You survived on adrenaline and rage for so long that when the threat disappears, your body doesn't know how to function." "You're in therapy?" "Started 2 weeks ago." He set the folder down, leaning against the rail beside her. "Turns out discovering your trusted advisor murdered your father requires professional help to process." Despite everything, Valentina felt her lips twitch. "Who knew?" Eleanor insisted. Said if I didn't talk to someone, she'd drag me there herself. His expression softened. "She's worried about you too." "I'm fine." "You're not. And that's okay." Alexander turned to face her fully. "Valentina, you spent 3 years in survival mode. You're allowed to fall apart now that it's safe to do so." The words cracked something inside her. Her eyes burned with tears she'd been holding back for weeks. "I don't know how to be anything except angry," she whispered. "I don't know how to just live, then learn. We'll learn together." Before she could respond, footsteps echoed on the dock. Eleanor appeared, impeccably dressed as always, but her expression was warm. Behind her, a young boy, maybe 10 years old, followed nervously. "Valentina, this is Matteo," Eleanor said gently. "He has something to tell you." The boy clutched a rolled-up paper. His hand shook slightly as he approached. "Miss Rossi, I saw Mr. Vale at the old marina, before you got the boat." Valentina's breath caught. "When?" "3 months ago. He was talking to someone about a boat with secrets. Said he needed to find it before someone else did." Mateo's voice was barely audible. "I drew what I saw, in case it mattered." He unrolled the paper, a child's drawing but surprisingly detailed. The Maribel's distinctive lines, Gregory's face, another man Valentina didn't recognize, and words in careful print, "Get rid of evidence." "I was scared to say anything before," Mateo whispered. "But my mama said you're a hero, that you stopped a bad man. So I wanted you to know I saw him, that I believe you." Valentina knelt, bringing herself to the boy's eye level. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling. "Thank you, Mateo. This means more than you know. You're really brave," he said seriously, like a superhero. After Eleanor took Mateo home, Valentina collapsed onto the cabin bench, still clutching the drawing. Alexander sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "A child believes in me," she said, voice thick. "After everything, a child I've never met thinks I'm a hero. You are. I'm not. I'm just someone who refused to stay down." She wiped her eyes. "Alexander, I don't want to go back to engineering. Not corporate engineering, at least. Those firms only want me now because I'm famous, because hiring me looks good. Then don't work for them." He retrieved the folder he'd brought. "I have a proposal, and before you say no, just listen." Inside were architectural plans, financial projections, and a mission statement. Valentina scanned the pages, her heart beginning to race. "The Maribel Foundation," she read aloud. "Maritime sustainability through engineering innovation, providing opportunities for—" She looked up, stunned. "You want to start a nonprofit?" "I want us to start one," Alexander corrected. "Together, equal partners. We restore vintage vessels using eco-friendly technology. We train young engineers from underprivileged backgrounds. We prove that maritime industry can be both profitable and sustainable. This would cost millions. I have millions, more than I could spend in 10 lifetimes." His voice was quiet, intense. "My father died because of greed, Gregory's greed, but also the culture of corruption in this industry. I want to change that, create something that matters, but I can't do it without you." Valentina stared at the plans, research facilities, training programs, partnerships with universities. It was everything she'd dreamed of when she first became an engineer, before Gregory destroyed it all. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you understand what it means to lose everything. Because you're brilliant and ethical and brave enough to fight systems that are broken." Alexander's hand found hers. "Because I trust you. Completely. Trust." The word hung between them, weighted with meaning. "I don't know if I can do this," Valentina admitted. "Lead something this big. I've been a waitress for 3 years, Alexander. I've forgotten how to be anything else. You haven't forgotten. You've just been surviving." He squeezed her hand. "Let yourself live again, Valentina. Take the risk. Build something beautiful from the wreckage Gregory left behind." She looked at the plans again, at the mission statement that could have been written from her own heart, at the man beside her who'd lost his father and somehow still believed in goodness. "Equal partners?" she asked. "True equality, shared decisions, shared leadership. I wouldn't have it any other way. And if I fail, if I'm not ready, then we fail together, and we try again." Alexander's smile was gentle. "I'm not asking you to be perfect, Valentina. I'm asking you to be brave one more time." She thought of Mateo's drawing, of Eleanor's fierce loyalty, of Marcus Pierce documenting truth even when he knew it would cost him everything, of 3 years spent invisible, believing she'd never matter again. Maybe it was time to matter. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's do it." Alexander's face transformed with relief and joy. He pulled her into his arms and she let herself be held, really held, for the first time in years. "Thank you," he murmured against her hair, "for trusting me, for giving us a chance." Outside, the Maribel rocked gently in her slip. The morning sun climbed higher, burning away the last shadows of night. And Valentina Rossi, who'd inherited a rusty yacht and 15 million in secrets, chose to inherit something more, hope for a future she'd stopped believing was possible. 6 months later, the Maribel Foundation opened its doors in a converted marina warehouse in Key Largo. The space was light-filled and modern. with marine engineering labs, classroom spaces, and a working dock where vintage vessels in various states of restoration floated like promises. Valentina stood in the main hall, watching workers hang the final sign, a stylized wave incorporating the Maribel's silhouette. Her chest felt tight with emotion she couldn't quite name. "It's perfect," Eleanor said, appearing at her elbow. "Marcus would have loved this. I wish he could have seen it." Valentina meant it. The foundation was built on Marcus Pierce's insurance files, funded by Alexander's inheritance, and driven by her engineering vision, a collaboration across time between people who'd never met. "He'd be proud of you both." Eleanor squeezed her arm. "Now stop being nervous. Your students arrive in an hour." Students. Valentina still couldn't quite believe it. The Foundation's first cohort, 15 young people from backgrounds like hers, brilliant but overlooked, talented but without resources. Kids who loved the ocean but couldn't afford marine engineering programs. Matteo was among them. The boy had shadowed Valentina for months, asking endless questions about hydrodynamics and propulsion systems. His natural talent was undeniable. When Eleanor quietly arranged a full scholarship, Matteo had cried, then immediately started sketching boat designs. Alexander emerged from the office wing, looking harried. "The marine biology partnership is confirmed. University of Miami is sending graduate students to collaborate on the coral restoration project. That's the 5th university partnership this month," Valentina said, amazed. "Your reputation opens doors." Alexander's smile was warm. "Turns out people want to work with the engineer who brought down a criminal empire. I just wanted to clear my name. You did that, then you decided to change an entire industry." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying. Exhilarating." Valentina leaned into him. "Real." The students arrived in a nervous cluster, teenagers and young adults from Miami, the Keys, even a few from inland Florida who'd fallen in love with boats through YouTube videos and dreams. They looked at the facility with awe, at Valentina with something like worship. "Welcome to the Maribel Foundation," she began, her voice only shaking slightly. "I'm not going to lie to you. This program is intense. You'll learn advanced marine engineering, sustainable design, environmental science, and business ethics. You'll work 12-hour days on real restoration projects. It will be the hardest thing you've ever done." The students exchanged excited glances. Good. They were ready. "But you'll also learn that engineering isn't just about math and materials. It's about integrity, about using your skills to make the world better, not just to make money." Valentina's throat tightened. 3 years ago, I lost everything because I trusted someone who valued profit over principles. This foundation exists to make sure that never happens to you." Matteo raised his hand. "Miss Rossi, what happened to the bad man?" "Gregory Vale is serving 25 years to life in federal prison," Valentina said simply. "His assets were seized, his company dissolved. Justice was served." "Good," Matteo said fiercely. Several students nodded agreement. Valentina spent the afternoon giving tours, explaining equipment, answering endless questions. The students were hungry for knowledge, for opportunity, for someone to believe in them. She saw herself in their eyes, young, brilliant, desperate to prove they mattered. By evening she was exhausted but exhilarated. Eleanor found her in the workshop, reviewing lesson plans. "You're glowing," Eleanor observed. "Teaching suits you." "I forgot how much I loved it. Before Gregory, I used to guest lecture at universities. Mentoring was always my favorite part." Valentina set down her tablet. "Thank you for pushing me toward this. I almost said no. You were scared. Understandable after what you survived." Eleanor's expression grew serious. "But Valentina, you're allowed to be happy now. You're allowed to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm working on it. Work harder." Eleanor's smile softened the words. "My son is in love with you." Even a blind person could see it. Don't let fear of the past steal your future. After Eleanor left, Valentina sat in the quiet workshop, surrounded by tools and blueprints and the smell of salt water. In love. Was Alexander in love with her? Was she in love with him? 6 months ago, the question would have terrified her. Love meant vulnerability. Trust meant risk. But Alexander had proven himself over and over, patient when she panicked, steady when she faltered, celebrating her victories without trying to claim them. Her phone buzzed. "Alexander, come to the dock. I have something to show you." She found him on the Maribel, which they'd moved to the Foundation's main slip as the centerpiece of their mission. The boat gleamed under dock lights, fully restored to her 1963 glory, but updated with modern sustainable systems. A perfect marriage of history and innovation. "What's this about?" Valentina asked, climbing aboard. Alexander stood at the wheel, grinning like a kid. "We're taking her out. Now? It's almost dark. Trust me." She did. That was the remarkable thing. She actually did. They motored out of the harbor as the sun set, painting the sky in impossible colors. The Maribel cut through calm water, engines purring. When they were a mile offshore, Alexander killed the engine and turned to face her. "6 months ago, we were strangers connected by a murdered father and a rusty boat," he said. "Now we're partners, friends, something more." Valentina's heart hammered. "Alexander, let me finish." He pulled a small box from his pocket and she stopped breathing. "I'm not proposing. Not yet. Not until you're ready. But I wanted you to have this." He opened the box. Inside, a ring made from melted metal from the Maribel's original engine. The sabotaged parts they'd removed, transformed into something beautiful. "From destruction to creation," Alexander said softly. "From secrets to truth. That's what we've built together, Valentina. That's what I want to keep building with you, for as long as you'll have me." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She took the ring, sliding it onto her right hand. A promise, not a proposal. A symbol of transformation. "I love you," she said, the words surprising her with their ease. "I didn't think I could love anyone again, but you made me believe in second chances." His kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promises neither of them rushed to make. Around them, the ocean stretched endlessly, no longer a graveyard of secrets but an expanse of possibility. The Maribel rocked gently beneath them, finally free of her dark history. And Valentina Rossi, who'd inherited a rusty yacht and discovered the truth, had inherited something far more valuable, a life worth living and love worth keeping. 1 year after the foundation's opening, Alexander prepared dinner aboard the Maribel with nervous hands. Candles flickered in hurricane glasses. A simple meal, grilled fish, roasted vegetables, wine that cost less than the champagne he used to drink without thinking. He'd learned that Valentina valued thoughtfulness over extravagance. She arrived as the sun touched the horizon, wearing a white sundress that made her look ethereal against the golden light. Her hair was loose, sun-streaked from months of working outdoors with students. She was more beautiful now than the day they'd met, confident, at peace, fully herself. "You cooked," she said, surprised. "I'm full of hidden talents." Alexander pulled out her chair. "Sit. Let me take care of you for once." They ate slowly, talking about the foundation's expansion plans, Matteo's acceptance to MIT's early admission program, the new coral restoration project gaining international attention. Easy conversation between people who knew each other's rhythms. But Alexander's heart hammered. Tonight mattered. "You're quiet," Valentina observed as he cleared plates. "Something on your mind?" He sat back down, taking her hands. "A year ago I gave you a ring and said I wasn't proposing, that I'd wait until you were ready." Her breath caught. "Alexander, I'm still not proposing." He smiled at her confusion. "Because I realized something. I don't want to ask you to marry me. I want us to decide together, as equals, if marriage is what we both want." Valentina's eyes glistened. "That's very you. So here's what I'm actually saying." Alexander's voice grew serious. "I love you. I want to spend my life with you, building impossible things and proving the world wrong. I want to wake up beside you when we're 70 and still argue about engine designs over breakfast. I want everything, marriage, partnership, family, adventure, all of it, with you." He paused, squeezing her hands. "But only if you want it too. Only if you're ready. I won't pressure you, won't rush you. I just needed you to know that when you're ready, if you're ready, I'm here." Tears spilled down Valentina's cheeks. She was quiet for a long moment, and Alexander forced himself not to fill the silence. This was hers to navigate. 3 years ago I thought my life was over," she said finally. "I thought I'd never trust anyone again, never risk my heart. Then you crashed into my life with your arrogance and your grief and your ridiculous limousine." Alexander laughed wetly. "It is a ridiculous limousine. You saw me when I was invisible, believed me when everyone else called me a liar, stood beside me when it would have been easier to walk away." Her voice broke. "You didn't try to save me, Alexander. You equipped me to save myself. That's the difference between you and every other man I've known." She stood, pulling him up with her. "So yes, Not because you asked, but because I'm choosing it. I want to marry you. I want to build a life together, messy and complicated and real. Yes? His voice cracked with hope. Yes. Equal partners, like we've always been. No pedestals, no power games. Just us, figuring it out together. Alexander kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. They stumbled toward the cabin, hands tangled in each other's hair, laughing and crying simultaneously. From the dock, Eleanor and Matteo watched discreetly. The boy looked up at her with wide eyes. Are they getting married? He whispered. I believe so. Eleanor's smile was radiant. About time, too. Inside the cabin, Alexander and Valentina broke apart, breathless. He reached into his pocket, not for a ring this time, but for a small velvet pouch. Inside, 2 matching bands made from the same Maribel metal as her promise ring. Simple, elegant, meaningful. I had these made months ago, he admitted. Just in case. Presumptuous. But she was smiling. Hopeful. He slipped 1 band onto her finger, left hand this time. She did the same for him. When? She asked. Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next year, whenever feels right. Valentina thought of everything they'd survived. The betrayal, the investigation, the gala confrontation, the slow rebuilding of trust and identity, the foundation that had become their shared purpose. Soon, she decided. Small ceremony. Just people who matter. On this boat, maybe. Perfect. Alexander pulled her close. Though Eleanor will insist on at least some flowers. And Matteo will want to give a speech about hydrodynamics somehow. They laughed, foreheads pressed together, swaying slightly to music only they could hear. Outside, fireworks exploded over the water. Some festival in Miami. Pure coincidence. But the timing felt like a blessing. I need to tell you something, Valentina said suddenly. Something I've been afraid to say. Alexander's heart clenched. What? I want children. Eventually. Not now, but someday. Her voice was small, vulnerable. I know you already raised yourself after your father died. I know you might not want. I want that too. He cupped her face. I want everything with you, Valentina. Children who inherit your brilliance and my stubbornness, teaching them to love the ocean and question authority and stand up for what's right. They'll be impossible. Absolutely impossible. And perfect. They kissed again. Slower this time. Through the cabin windows the moon rose full and bright, turning the water to liquid silver. The Maribel rocked gently, cradling them like a benediction. Valentina thought about the stranger who'd left her this boat, Victor Castellano, who she'd never met but who'd somehow known she'd need it. Had he known what secrets it held? Had he orchestrated this entire journey? She'd never know, but she was grateful. Thank you, she whispered to the ghost of a man she'd never meet. For the boat, for the truth, for leading me here. Alexander heard her, understood without explanation. He gave you the key, but you unlocked everything yourself. We unlocked it together. Together, he agreed. Always. The fireworks continued, reflecting in the water like scattered stars. And aboard the Maribel, 2 people who'd been broken by betrayal chose to be made whole by love. Not perfect love. Messy, complicated, sometimes frightening love. But real, honest, built on foundation strong enough to weather any storm. The kind of love worth fighting for. Gregory Vale's trial began on a humid August morning, nearly 2 years after his arrest. The courthouse was packed. Journalists, former colleagues, victims of his various frauds spanning decades. Valentina sat in the front row beside Alexander and Eleanor, her hands clenched in her lap. You don't have to be here, Alexander murmured. We can leave. I need to see this. Valentina's voice was steady. I need to watch justice happen. The prosecution's case was devastating. Financial records proving decades of embezzlement. Video evidence of Gregory installing explosives on the Maribel. Audio of his confession to Marcus Pierce. Testimony from dozens of people he'd defrauded, destroyed, or silenced. When Valentina was called to testify, she walked to the stand with her head high. Gregory stared at her with undisguised hatred, but she refused to look away. Miss Rossi, the prosecutor began. Please describe your relationship with the defendant. She told the story clinically, without emotion, how Gregory had been her mentor, then partner, then fiancé, how he'd stolen her designs and falsified documents to frame her for his crimes, how he'd destroyed her career so thoroughly that she'd contemplated ending her life. But you didn't, the prosecutor said gently. No, I survived, and I rebuilt. Valentina finally looked at Gregory. You took 3 years from me, but you didn't break me. Gregory's lawyer tried to paint her as vindictive, as someone with an axe to grind, but the evidence was insurmountable. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Gregory screamed that it was a conspiracy, that Valentina had seduced Alexander, that the evidence was fabricated. Security had to forcibly remove him. Outside, journalists mobbed them. Valentina gave a brief statement. Justice was served today, not just for me, but for Marcus Pierce, for the investors Gregory defrauded, for everyone he hurt. The maritime industry has a chance to be better now. We intend to make sure it is. The headlines were unanimous. Maritime criminal gets 25 years for murder, fraud. Valentina Rossi, from victim to advocate. The engineer who cleaned the ocean. That night, the Maribel Foundation held a quiet celebration. Students past and present gathered, along with university partners, environmental groups, and industry leaders who'd pledged to implement the foundation's ethical standards. Matteo, now a confident 16-year-old MIT student, stood to speak. 3 years ago, I was a scared kid who saw something bad. Miss Rossi taught me that seeing isn't enough. You have to act. You have to stand up, even when it's scary. Because of her, I'm going to be an engineer, and I'm going to build boats that heal oceans instead of poisoning them. The room erupted in applause. Valentina wiped her eyes. Eleanor was next. My husband Marcus was a complicated man, brilliant but flawed, ethical but sometimes misguided. He made mistakes in his youth that haunted him, but he documented those mistakes and his death because he believed truth mattered more than legacy. She paused, emotional. The Maribel Foundation is Marcus's real legacy. Not the money, not the business, but this. Young people learning that integrity and innovation can coexist. Alexander pulled Valentina onto the small stage. 2 years ago, I met a woman covered in grease, working on a boat she'd inherited from a stranger. I thought I was investigating my father's death. Instead, I found my future. His voice was thick. Valentina Rossi is the strongest person I know. She's also the kindest, the most brilliant, and the most stubborn. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Next month, she's going to become my wife, and I'm the luckiest man alive. More applause. Valentina's face burned, but she was smiling. The foundation has grown beyond our wildest dreams, Alexander continued. We've trained 65 students, partnered with 18 universities, restored 32 vintage vessels using sustainable technology, published research that's changing industry standards globally, and it's just the beginning. He turned to Valentina. Want to tell them? She stepped forward, nervous but excited. Next year, we're opening 2 additional facilities, one in San Diego, one in Boston. We're also launching a scholarship program for students who've faced legal or professional challenges like I did, people who deserve second chances. The room erupted again. Students cheered. Eleanor cried happy tears. Later, after everyone left, Valentina and Alexander walked to the dock. The Maribel was lit from within, glowing like a lantern against the dark water. They'd decided to keep it permanently docked at the foundation, a museum, a teaching tool, a reminder of how truth could transform tragedy. Do you ever think about how random it all was? Valentina asked. If Victor Castellano hadn't left me that boat, it wasn't random. Alexander pulled her close. He chose you specifically. Somehow he knew you were the only person who could do this. How could he have known? He never met me. Maybe he didn't need to. Maybe he just recognized a kindred spirit, someone who valued truth over convenience. Alexander kissed her temple. Or maybe the universe has a sense of humor. Valentina laughed. Some sense of humor. Here's a rusty boat, a murder mystery, and the man responsible for destroying your life. Good luck. You forgot the billionaire with trust issues. Oh, right, and him. They stood in comfortable silence watching the water. Valentina thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, broken, invisible, certain her life was over. If she could talk to that version of herself, what would she say? It gets better. You'll survive this. And on the other side is everything you never knew to hope for. Ready to go home? Alexander asked. Home. His estate, which had slowly become theirs, where her engineering book sat beside his business journals, where they argued about sustainable propulsion over breakfast and made love under stars visible from the bedroom window. Not yet. Valentina climbed onto the Maribel, pulling him with her. 1 more minute. They sat in the captain's chairs Marcus Pierce had once occupied. where Gregory had planted bombs, where Valentina had discovered the truth. The boat held so much history, pain and loss and secrets, but now it held something else too. Hope, redemption, love. "Thank you," Valentina said to the boat, to Marcus, to Victor Castellano, to whatever force had brought her here. "For everything." Alexander's hand found hers. Their matching rings caught the moonlight, metal forged from destruction, transformed into symbols of commitment. "Ready now?" he asked. "Ready." They walked home together, leaving the Maribel glowing in the darkness. Behind them, a legacy. Ahead, a future. And between them, love, hard-won, deeply tested, absolutely real. The kind that lasted. 8 months after the wedding, Valentina stood in the Boston facilities control room, watching through the window as students tested a hydrogen fuel cell system on a restored 1970s sailboat. The technology was revolutionary, zero emissions, affordable to retrofit, scalable across the industry. Her phone buzzed. "Alexander, how's Boston?" "Cold. Productive. Miss you. Home tomorrow?" "Tonight if this test succeeds." She smiled at the screen. "Home." They split time between Miami and Key Largo now, with frequent trips to oversee the new facilities. It was exhausting, exhilarating, exactly what she'd dreamed of building. The test succeeded. The students cheered as clean exhaust vapor dissipated harmlessly into the air. Valentina felt the familiar rush of accomplishment, not just her success, but theirs. She was training the next generation to be better than hers had been. Her flight landed in Miami at midnight. Alexander waited at arrivals, looking rumpled and perfect in jeans and a sweater. He pulled her into his arms like she'd been gone months instead of days. "How'd it go?" he asked, taking her bag. "Perfectly. The hydrogen system exceeded projections. We're ready to publish." She leaned into him as they walked. "How's Eleanor?" "Thriving. She's mentoring 5 new students personally. I think she's found her calling." His smile was warm. "Also, she's planning another fundraising gala. Fair warning." Valentina groaned. "I hate galas." "You literally brought down a criminal empire at a gala." "Exactly. They're stressful." They drove home along the coast, windows down, salt air filling the car. Valentina watched the ocean slip past, thinking about how different this drive felt from 3 years ago. Then, she'd been running. Now, she was arriving. At the house, Eleanor had left dinner in the warmer, her way of mothering them both. They ate on the terrace overlooking the water, talking about the Foundation's expansion, Mateo's latest research breakthrough, the documentary crew that wanted to film their work. "We got another major donation," Alexander said. "Anonymous. $10 million, earmarked for the scholarship program." Valentina's fork paused halfway to her mouth. $10 million? From who? "Won't say. The lawyer handling it was very mysterious. Just said the donor believes in second chances." Alexander's eyes were thoughtful. "I have a theory, but it's wild. Tell me, what if Victor Castellano had other assets? Money hidden away, set to be released after Gregory's conviction. Maybe he planned this whole thing, leaving you the boat, knowing you'd uncover the truth, setting aside funds to continue the work." Valentina considered it. "That's actually possible. He knew about the smuggling, the cargo. Maybe he felt guilty, wanted to make amends. We'll never know for sure. But I like thinking someone was looking out for you, even after death. Guardian angel in the form of a mysterious dead smuggler. That's very on brand for my life." They laughed, the sound carrying across the water. Later, lying in bed with Alexander's arm around her, Valentina felt something shift, a certainty, a readiness she'd been waiting for. "I want to start trying," she said quietly. Alexander's breathing paused. "Trying? For a baby? I know we said we'd wait, but..." She turned to face him. "I'm ready. We're stable. The foundation is thriving, and I want to build this part of our life too." His smile was radiant. "I've been ready since the day you said yes. You could have said something. This had to be your decision, your timeline." He kissed her softly. "I'm just grateful you want this with me." 3 months later, Valentina stood in their bathroom staring at a pregnancy test with shaking hands. 2 lines. Positive. She found Alexander in his study buried in foundation paperwork. "Hey, need to show you something." He looked up, and whatever he saw in her face made him stand immediately. "What's wrong?" She handed him the test without a word. His eyes widened. "Is this... are you..." He couldn't seem to finish sentences. "We're having a baby," she confirmed, and started crying. "I'm terrified and excited and completely overwhelmed." Alexander pulled her close, his own eyes wet. "Me too. All of it. But mostly just grateful." They told Eleanor that night. She cried, then immediately started planning, turning the guest room into a nursery, researching the best pediatricians, calling everyone she'd ever met with the news. "You're going to be insufferable," Alexander told his mother fondly. "I'm going to be a grandmother. I've earned the right to be insufferable." Matteo video called from MIT when he heard, "Does this mean I'm going to be like an uncle? Because I have very strong opinions about STEM education starting in infancy." "Of course you do," Valentina laughed. "We wouldn't expect anything less." The foundation students threw an impromptu celebration. Someone made a cake decorated with tiny boats. Everyone had advice, most of it contradictory, all of it well-meaning. That night, Valentina and Alexander took the Maribel out alone. It had become their ritual when life got overwhelming, when decisions needed making, when they just needed to remember where they'd started. "Scared?" Alexander asked, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Terrified. What if I'm a terrible mother? What if I mess them up?" "You won't. You'll teach them to be brilliant and brave and ethical. You'll show them that failure isn't the end, that truth matters more than appearances." He kissed her forehead. "You'll be exactly the mother I want for our children." "Children plural? We haven't even had one yet." "I'm an optimist." The moon rose full and bright, painting a silver path across the water. Valentina thought about the journey that had brought her here, the inheritance, the investigation, the confrontation, the slow rebuilding of identity and purpose. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" she asked. "That we'd met some normal way, without all the trauma and drama?" Alexander was quiet for a moment. "No, because the trauma and drama made us who we are, made us understand each other in ways that wouldn't have been possible otherwise." He turned her to face him. "I wouldn't trade our story for anything, even the parts where I was a broke waitress and you were an arrogant billionaire. Especially those parts. They're my favorite chapters." They sailed until dawn, talking about names and nursery colors and how to balance parenthood with running an international foundation. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing about their life was easy, but it would be worth it. As the sun rose, painting the sky in impossible colors, Valentina felt the baby flutter for the first time, tiny, barely there, but unmistakable. A new life, beginning. She pressed Alexander's hand to her stomach. "Did you feel that?" "I did." His voice was thick with emotion. "Hello, little one. We're your parents. We're going to mess up sometimes, but we're going to love you so much." The Maribel carried them home as the world woke up around them. And Valentina Rossi, who'd inherited a rusty yacht and built an empire of ethics from its ruins, prepared to inherit something more, the chance to raise a child who would change the world in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The future was bright. The water was calm. And finally, after years of storms, they were sailing toward sunrise. 5 years later, Valentina sat in a television studio in New York, preparing for an interview that would be broadcast internationally. Her daughter Sophia, now 3, sat in the green room with Eleanor, coloring pictures of boats. Their son Marcus, named for Alexander's father, slept peacefully in Eleanor's arms, 6 months old and blissfully unaware that his mother was about to tell their family's story to millions. "Ready, Miss Rossi?" The producer smiled. "Or should I say Dr. Rossi? Congratulations on the honorary doctorate from MIT, by the way." "Still getting used to that," Valentina admitted. The doctorate had come last month, recognition for her contributions to sustainable marine engineering. Matteo had been there, now a graduate student himself, whooping embarrassingly loud when they announced her name. The interviewer was professional but warm. "Dr. Rossi, your foundation has revolutionized the maritime industry in just 5 years. But your story begins much earlier, with a rusty yacht and a stranger's inheritance. Can you tell us about that?" Valentina took a breath. She'd told this story before, but it never got easier. 5 years ago, I inherited a 1963 yacht called the Maribel from a man I'd never met. I was working as a waitress, hiding from a past that had destroyed my engineering career. That boat changed everything. She walked through the discovery, the investigation, the confrontation. The interviewer listened, rapt, as Valentina explained how uncovering her partner's crimes had led not just to justice, but to a complete reimagining of what ethical business could look like. The real treasure wasn't the 15 million in rare metals. Valentina said. It was the truth, and what we built from that truth. The Maribel Foundation now operates in 6 cities, has trained over 300 students, and your sustainable retrofitting technology is being adopted worldwide. How does that feel? Humbling, overwhelming. Right. Valentina smiled. We prove that maritime industry can be profitable without being destructive, that you can train brilliant engineers while maintaining ethical standards, that second chances matter. Speaking of second chances, Gregory Vale, the man who framed you, is still serving his sentence. Do you ever think about him? Valentina paused. Truthful answer or diplomatic one? Rarely. He's not worth my energy. But I think about his victims often, the people he hurt, the careers he destroyed. Several of them work at the foundation now. We have a whole program dedicated to rehabilitating engineers who faced professional sabotage. That's remarkable. You took your trauma and transformed it into healing for others. That's what we're supposed to do, isn't it? Take our pain and make it meaningful. After the interview, Valentina returned to the green room. Sophia ran to her immediately. Mama, I drew the Maribel. The drawing was remarkably accurate for a 3-year-old. The distinctive lines, the proud bow. Sophia had grown up hearing stories about the boat, had sailed on it dozens of times. It was as much a part of her childhood as bedtime stories. It's beautiful, mi amor. Valentina kissed her daughter's head, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and crayons. Alexander arrived from his own meeting. He'd been speaking to Congress about maritime environmental regulations. He looked tired but energized, the way he always did after advocating for their cause. How'd it go? He asked, pulling her close. Good. They asked about Gregory. What did you say? That he's not worth discussing. She leaned into him. How was Congress? Promising. 3 senators committed to supporting the Clean Ocean Act. Your research was instrumental in convincing them. They flew home to Miami that night, children sleeping through the turbulence. Eleanor met them at the house with dinner and updates, 2 new corporate partnerships, a university in Japan requesting consultation, Mateo's engagement announcement. He's marrying a marine biologist, Eleanor reported, delighted. The wedding will be on the Maribel, naturally. Naturally, Valentina laughed. The boat had hosted 4 weddings now, dozens of proposals and countless ceremonies. It had become a symbol, not just of their foundation, but of transformation itself. The next morning, Valentina woke before dawn. She left Alexander sleeping, checked on the children, and drove to the Key Largo facility. The Maribel floated peacefully in her permanent slip, lights reflecting on calm water. She climbed aboard, running her hand along the polished rail. 5 years since Gregory's arrest. 8 years since she'd inherited this boat. A lifetime since she'd been the broken woman who'd first stepped onto this deck. Thank you, she whispered to Victor Castellano, wherever he was, for seeing something in me I couldn't see in myself, for giving me the tools to rebuild, for trusting me with the truth. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. Students began arriving for early morning shifts, calling cheerful greetings. The foundation was alive, thriving, growing beyond anything she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed. Alexander, where'd you go? The Maribel. Needed to say goodbye. Goodbye? She smiled at the screen. Not goodbye to the boat. That would always be part of their story. But goodbye to the woman she'd been when she inherited it. The scared, broken, invisible waitress who'd thought her life was over. That woman had served her purpose. It was time to let her rest. Goodbye to who I was. Hello to who we've become. A moment later, I love who we've become. Come home. Sophia wants pancakes and Marcus is demanding his mother. Your family needs you. Your family. The words made her chest tight with emotion. Valentina took one last look at the Maribel, the boat that had held 15 million in cargo, but had given her something infinitely more valuable. Truth, justice, purpose, love. She drove home as the sun climbed higher, burning away the last shadows of night. At the house, chaos waited. Sophia's laughter, Marcus's cries, Alexander's terrible pancake-flipping skills, Eleanor's running commentary on everyone's life choices, her family, her foundation, her legacy. Not the legacy of a victim, or a scandal, or a dramatic gala confrontation, but the legacy of a woman who'd refused to stay broken, who'd taken a rusty yacht and a stranger's faith and built something that would outlast them all. Valentina Rossi, waitress, engineer, founder, mother, wife, parked the car and walked toward the house. toward the noise and mess and beautiful chaos of a life well lived. The ocean sparkled behind her, clean and bright and full of possibility. And she smiled, because she'd done it. She'd cleaned the ocean, not literally, though the foundation was working on that too, but metaphorically. She'd taken corruption and transformed it into integrity, taken betrayal and made it into trust. The Maribel had been her inheritance, but truth, justice, and love, those she'd earned herself, and nothing, not Gregory Vale or scandal or doubt, could ever take that away. The door opened. Alexander stood there with Sophia on his hip and flour in his hair. "We're making a mess." "I can see that." Valentina climbed the steps, kissing her daughter, her husband, choosing joy. "Let's make it worse." Behind them, the ocean whispered its approval. And somewhere in whatever place holds the souls of complicated men who try to make amends, Victor Castellano smiled. His gift had found its purpose, and the woman who'd inherited a rusty yacht had inherited the world. The end. Thank you for following, commenting, and sharing this journey. Your support means everything. Until our next story, keep believing in second chances and the power of truth.